Welcome to the Fundamental Baptist Podcast. There are many types of Baptists, but being a Baptist once meant that you were a fundamentalist. Over the years, many Baptists have strayed from the fundamentals and thus attacked those who remain true to the faith. This podcast will address the issues surrounding what it means to be a fundamental Baptist.
Somebody said, Brother House, fundamentalists are changing, aren't they? No, fundamentalists don't change. Folks quit being fundamentalists. God says when the troubles come, He said, fight. You can't fight. He said, withstand. You can't withstand. He said, stand. What does it mean to stand? He said, don't change. What? Don't change what? Number one, don't change what you believe.
Here we will reason concerning the Scriptures about the doctrines we hold dear. We believe in souls being saved, lives being changed, and Bible doctrines being strengthened by the Word of God. We believe in the local church, soul winning, missions, and everything taught in the King James Bible.
I thank God tonight for this wonderful Bible. You know, I thank God it's a perfect book, and I love the Bible. Doesn't need any addition, no correction, nothing taken from it. Thank God tonight for the Holy Bible. I like it just like it is.
We are not ashamed of being fundamental Baptists, and we want to encourage others to remain true to the Bible, their Baptist heritage, and to not change what they have been given.
You just stick with the book. You can't beat this book. Why does every generation feel that we got to change it just a little bit because our daddy did it like this and our granddaddy did it like that, and let's change it just a little bit? You change it, and things that are different are not the same. The same commit thou to faithful men.
Thank you for joining us in our discussion of what it means to be a fundamental Baptist.
Hello and welcome. My name is David Baker. Welcome to the Wisdom for Life podcast. Hey, we're glad that you're here. We have a special treat for you today. A guest, a friend of mine, Evangelist Todd Monaghan. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Awesome. Great to have you. So, Evangelist. So, 4 or 5 years old, you surrendered to preach and be evangelist. Is that right?
Yep. And I've never sinned a day in my life. Everything's just been rosy.
Awesome. So we're going to get into Brother Todd's story. It is quite interesting, and super guy, great guy. But first, we got to get to the important things. If you're on video, then you can see Todd has a very special mug. Brother Todd, you preach for us. How many times do you think you've come down here? We were the first church you ever preached in, besides your home church, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
no, before that, was just the first.
Before
like,
even
the
your
first
home church.
Like adult crowd.
Yeah, first
Pinkies
adult
up.
crowd. So anyway, he likes coffee. My daughter has coffee mugs. So when he came here, we gave him this coffee mug. Todd's sort of a wimpy guy, as you'll hear in a few minutes. And so we gave him the wimpy pink coffee and mascara coffee mug. So every time he comes, we have to make sure we give him that. So you'll see why we laugh about that in a minute. So, Brother Todd, tell us how you grew up, your testimony as a child and teenager, how all that happened.
So my mother had my sister when she was 12 years old. She had me when she was 13 years old. She ended up losing custody of me and my sister. Got it back on the 10th day that she had custody of us. She was out doing some drugs. I ended up popping a bottle of pills and I began to overdose. However, my sister's grandmother taught her how to dial 911. She saw something was wrong. She called 911. They came, they put my stomach, and I got put in a couple different foster homes. The family was actually going to adopt me to try to keep their marriage together, which I wouldn't have been a glue for anybody's marriage, especially as a toddler. Anyways, I ended up getting adopted by a white family in Iowa after I spent some time with a foster family, a good foster family, great foster family. They were very wealthy. She drove a Lincoln Town car around town. She drove a Corvette for fun, and she had a Cadillac for long trips. They actually said I could have that Corvette when I graduated, but my parents said no for some reason.
Because you'd probably be dead, that's why. So,
Probably.
For sure. So that
was the beginning of my life.
So teenage years.
Well, we can fast forward to middle school. My family was a strong family. I remember my grandmother, or my grandfather dying, my aunt getting hit by a semi and dying, and then my aunt having a heart attack, dropping the baby, and the baby dying. And it wasn't even her baby; it was her daughter's baby. And I can remember that happening around 7. But as I was about 16 years old, I thought to myself, all that stuff happened in we had great Christmases, we had great Easters, we had great Thanksgiving all through that time. So that's the kind of family I had, a strong family. But yeah, my parents were moral, unsaved. But to this day, I've never seen my parents get into an argument or
Wow.
use any serious bad language. I was able to lead my mom to the Lord recently, but anyways,
Beautiful.
with that being said, in middle school, I I can remember asking my parents to get a trampoline, and they said no. So I instantly went and asked my sister if she would get one about a week later. Not instantly, a week later, and then we had one just like that. It was like that with clothes and all types of things. And I had these two pair of windbreakers, navy blue, and the kids would pick on me because I had these. I was always wearing the same pair of pants, and one of my friends heard me complaining about this, and he told me, "Well, you can sell this on some marijuana, and you can make your own money, buy your own pants." And I was a savvy little guy, and I made the choice to sell the drugs. But had my parents told me, "Why don't you get a work permit, get a job, or even just bought me some pants," and I realized I should just been thankful that I had anything to wear. But had they did that, I probably would have developed a strong work ethic instead of getting addicted to drugs
Right.
or selling drugs, not addicted to drugs, but the money. So I sold the drugs, bought my own pants. I kept selling them, gave them all the money back till I could buy my own ounce of marijuana, then quarter pound, then half pound. So I'm in 8th grade to 9th grade. I go from a ounce to which cost about $110, and then some of my buddies lowered them down to 90, and then we had a little monopoly there, and then got the quarter pounds and half pounds. So that's in a summer, that's a good little come up for me. $500 every couple of weeks as a young man.
So then on into college, and what happened? And
College, where I actually got to go to college with the guy that I played pee wee football with, a good friend my whole life. But we were rough in college, kicking in people's doors and robbing people, and you name it. We were pretty much doing it. If there was one kid, we wanted to get a pound of marijuana from him, and in order for him to get it for us, he had to put the title up to his car. And we didn't care about his car or his title or any of that stuff. So he puts the title up to his car, he brings it back, and me and this big white guy had this robbery planned out, and he backed out on me. But I saw this black dude from Missouri. I said, I got this lick. We can get this guy. He just backed out. Do you want to get him? So let's say this is the dorm room. My dorm was here. We walked down here. His dorm was right here. Right, we walked down here. We devised a plan. He said, you get it, hold it up in your hand. I'm gonna snatch it and run. So he we walked. The door was here. There was a blanket. Pulled the blanket back. I got it, and I said, "Here, look at this." And he snatched it and he took off running. So I grabbed a knife that he had there, and we took off looking for him. And we ended up seeing the guy. He said, "Is that him?" I said, "No, he had a different color shirt on." He ran and changed his shirt, but he was hiding behind the car. We ran straight out. He was right there behind that car. I just took off this way. He followed me, and that's just the kind of stuff that we were doing. Then I get back from college. My buddy is uh, no longer selling weed. He's selling cocaine, and he's making $1,000 on Friday, $1,000 on Saturday, sitting on the bar, got the ladies, all this, that, and the other. And I thought to myself, man, I need some of that money instead of $1,000 in a month. Let's make $1,000, a couple $1,000s a week. And we started doing that. We were getting ecstasy pills for $3 a piece if we bought 500 of them, and we were selling them all for $25, and we were getting 500 every 3 months, plus ounces of cocaine and marijuana. You can do the math with all that. So as far as salvation goes,
yes, let's get you out of that. So
yeah,
what happened? How did God get hold of you?
yeah, and only God could have changed anything. Excuse me. So I walked across to this Urban Outfitter
Clothing store.
clothing store in the front, and then in the back he had a call center. And I asked this man if he had a pair of shoes that I wanted, and he said, "No, I don't have those shoes that you want, but I got a question for you. Do you know for sure if you go to heaven or not when you die?" Keep in mind, this man I saw him selling drugs, I saw him doing drugs, and I saw him at the bar every single weekend and Thursdays, and so you could classify him as an alcoholic, definitely in my opinion. Uh, he asked me if I knew for sure if I was going to heaven or not. He said, I don't got these shoes for you, but I got a question. Do you know for sure if you're going to go to heaven or not? And I told him, yeah, I'm going to heaven because I'm Catholic. He said, well, according to the Bible, that answer won't get you there. And he had tabbed out clearly how I could know for sure heaven was my home, all the Bible verses. I took those Bible verses to my house, and I was looking at the mirror, at the Bible, and I said, I'm going to just put my trust and faith in Christ. And I was born again right then and there.
Amen.
And life for me, all I knew was selling drugs and fighting. And one of my friends, maybe 3, 4, 5 days after that, came to me and he asked me if I could get him a pound of marijuana to help him make some money for his wedding. My other buddy that I went to college with wanted to know if I could get him a quarter pound to smoke. And I said, sure. So I went and I did that, and we would get 5, 10, 15 bricks of marijuana, pounds, and we would cut the corner on each one to make sure that the marijuana was in there. But this day I got a big pound Ziploc baggie with a fluffy quarter pound sitting here and a brick in here. Gave him the money, took off, threw the quarter pound to my friend, threw the brick to my other buddy, and he went to cut the corner and he couldn't get in there. So he unravels it and there's a book in there. So naturally he's not very happy. And the book that the man used to deceive us was entitled "A Hope for Each Day" by Billy Graham. And I figured, well, I didn't have a clue who Billy Graham was. I'm not a Billy Graham guy, but I read the book, and in chapter number 1 says it pleases God for you to put your trust and faith in Him. I don't remember anything else about the book, but I remember that, and I remember telling God, okay, I'm going to do that, but you're going to have to do something for me. The next day, I walked across the street to the Urban Outfitter again. And I had been trying to read this Bible, but I couldn't comprehend so good. Learning disabilities, mom doing drugs, this, that, and the other. And I said, you can have this Bible back. I can't understand it. He said, well, have you prayed about it? So I did that. And then the next day, I'm reading the Bible. I'm comprehending. If you can't read and you pray, and the next day you're reading, that's a miracle. That's the first thing that God did in my life. I didn't even see that, though. The first thing that I saw God do in my life was I was that man. He would let us go to church, or he would pay us if we'd get a couple hours of overtime if we would go to church on Wednesdays. The drug dealer and drug using alcoholic, mind you. And we have a lot of rock solid Baptists out there that live a good, healthy, clean life, but don't lead anybody to the Lord.
Yep.
Side note.
By the way, on a side note, that guy did end up getting rid of the alcohol and drugs and things in
Yep.
his life. So
Yep.
absolutely, he's now a good friend, and he'll be coming down tomorrow to work with us what we're doing here. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a pleasure and good to see him. Anticipating that. So the next thing that I saw God really do, and then I guess we could close with this. I was coming to as far as this portion, I was coming home from Iowa, or coming home to Iowa from Wisconsin, and the police pulled us over and said this verbiage was just blew my mind. They said we were weaving in and out of traffic, passing 40 ounces of malt liquor. I'm like, come on, malt liquor, really? And you just want to pull us over, and smoking cannabis. And I got a DWB, driving while black, because we had no liquor, we had no cannabis, we had no alcohol in the car. But what I did have was a warrant for failure to appear, so I had to go to jail for 30 days. And as I got there, I had been going to church. So that Sunday I went to church. There was only one person in the church. We had a big flat screen, and that's where they had church and all that stuff.
Going to church in jail.
In jail.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was only one other person in there. So next Saturday, when I got saved, I went to church, and on Saturday they did a thing called soul winning, and I figured I'm here. I'm going to go soul winning. So I started asking people, you want to go to church? Want to go to church? But I didn't do it on Saturday. I did it on Sunday. Let's get up and go to church. No. Let's get up and go to church. Wake me up again. I'm going to stab you with my pencil. Things of that nature. Anyways, long story short, by the time I was done in there, there was a man at the that whole section was filled up with people. There was a Bible study at the top end of the pod, bottom end of the pod, and the very next thing that I saw God do after giving me that book, and that man, he offered me a job actually at his call center, and I said, I'm not going to work in a call center. He said, I don't need you to work on the phones. I just want you to hire and fire people, manage them. I said, I can do that for sure. So I saw God do that after I told him, I need you to do something for me. Actually, I told him, you're going to have to do something for me. And he did something for me.
Amen.
So I get to that jail, very first day. I see a couple men. I prayed for both of those men. I see the countenance on those men's faces change. And I think to myself, man, God, if there's anybody else here who needs me, could you send them to me? This was maybe 12 o'clock at night. I go to sleep, wake up, eat breakfast, sleep half the day away because nobody wants to be in jail all day. And then I go to the break room. And now the COs sit at a desk with a computer and they're showing all people my fights and stuff, which is ridiculous because we're in jail. People flashing around that they're tough guys. Other people are going to want to test them. So I can remember praying that prayer, going to sleep, waking up, eating breakfast, going to the break room instead of going to sleep for some reason. I was the only one in there, and this guy comes streaming up to me, and I'm thinking, man, I'm going to have to punch this guy. He's going to want to fight. Who knows why? Or I could let him punch me, and then we can scrap this. Going to look better on the camera. Then I was like, forget that. I go to stand up, and he sits down. I'm like, cool, great. We don't have to fight today. And he said, I got the devil in me. Could you pray with me? And I thought to myself, man, I just asked God if anybody needed me, if you could send them to me. And he did that right away. And then it was time for me to get out. The guards were trying to get me out early. They said, and since this maximum security prison had been built, this is the first time that there has not been an altercation where somebody had to get kicked out, got beat out, there was a bloody altercation where somebody had to get kited out or any of that stuff. He said, you brought peace to this pod. And I thought to myself, I brought peace to this pod. Wow. And then it dawned on me, I didn't bring peace to this pod. God brought peace to this pod. Yep. And if God can do that with me in here, he can do that with me out there. And that's what I've just been trying to do since.
Awesome. So you mentioned your fighting background. Just quickly give what you've done in the fighting world.
I've won several amateur titles. I won several professional titles. I'm the first Iowa heavyweight state champion. I was ranked in the top 100 at heavyweight and in the top 50 at light heavyweight in the world. Fought on the TV show The Ultimate Fighter. Own a gym, run a gym.
Awesome.
Got it.
So just quickly on that, two things we're doing while we're here. One is, as you know, I'm the chaplain at the jail, and my son is, and so this is the fourth time?
This is the fourth time.
Fourth time that Todd's come down and we do a revival inside the jail. They allow us to do that. And so Todd's preaching like 15 times in every pod, in every group.
My feet don't hurt this time. I'm wearing sneakers instead of what I would
dress shoes. So it's a lot. I mean, it's preaching, 5 times a day going in there. And so we have that. And then on Friday and Saturday, we do a mini mixed martial arts conference and training for young guys from 9 to 18 years old and teach them some jiu-jitsu, some wrestling, some boxing, and it's awesome. We have 7 boys. Our boys love it, look forward to it, and we'll get some bloody noses, we'll get some bust black eyes. It's awesome. And to be able to teach the young men to be able to defend, protect themselves, their family, is a big deal. And so and like I said, Todd has a gym in Iowa. So you use your gym, you win people to Christ, you preach in junior church, and now you're traveling around the country and around the world preaching. How is God using you? Tell me about the ministry that God's given you.
It's not a ministry, it's ministries for sure. So the gym, after COVID, the gym almost shut down, and that was we were petitioning for all the help and all the stuff that they were offering everybody, and they didn't give us anything until after we got ourselves right back on our feet. But better late than never. And I told God, my gym is open. I got 10,000 square feet. I have, I never pay out of my own pocket for the gym. It's sufficient. But I told the Lord, if you want this gym to stay open, you're gonna have to do something. And He just flooded us with people. I asked Him that like 3 months ago. And I believe the reason that we only pay $700. We're downtown, one of the most prime locations ever. And that's because people get saved and people come to church. And every time there's junior church, I do programs for all my kids to come to church, and God's just worked that out. So there's what the gym is, and it's an outreach to the community. And I'm a police chaplain with the Clinton County Police Department, and we allow...
Wait. A drug dealer and a thug is now the police chaplain? Is that...
yeah, it's interesting. Actually, I'm in the public school system, too. I got a gold key to the city, or a gold key to the school district, and the officers were there saying how ironic that was, that they're sitting here giving me a gold key to the school district, the ones that used to try to arrest me. Had a Fed come to my gym once, and he walked in and he said, "I'm sorry. I'd like to say sorry for, the way that I treated you back in the day." And I said, "Well, I wasn't the best citizen back in the day." And he said, "Well, um, I could have still did better." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "I could have tried to help you." I said, "Interesting. What changed your heart on that one?" He said,
Wow.
"I got saved."
Wow.
I said, "Oh, that's good." He said, "That'll happen."
That'll
So
be good.
there's schools, there's the chaplain. I do inner city teen conferences. I was in Maryland, and I saw rusty cars and dirty fingernails on the parents in the middle class neighborhoods. And then we go to the Section 8 housing where they have Beamers and all these Mercedes ginormous flat screen TVs. I asked the preacher that I was with, "How does this happen?" He said, "Well, the politicians come in. They say, don't become one of those politicians."
No,
I know
sir.
you won't. I know you won't. I know you won't. And I'm looking forward to you running and your success there. But he says the politicians will come in and ask, "Do you like how you're living?" And if they say yes, they'll say, "Vote for us," and you can continue to live that way. To me, it's a form of modern day slavery. You can argue that it is or it is not. That's how I feel about it. And we have all these people, Kaepernick, this guy, that guy, you want to take a knee, you want to do this, you want to do that, you want to do that. Let's do something with some substance. So what I chose to do is start inner city teen conferences where we try to combat the entitlement, where we try to combat the using babies to pay for your lifestyle, yada yada yada. Inner city teen conferences, we do mixed martial arts camps, as you mentioned. Strong emphasis on men being men, dealing with the cards they've been dealt, still being productive members of society. Vacation Bible schools, in the jails, doing revivals. Uh, all kinds of stuff.
And fishing.
Fishing. 149 species of fish caught. 2020. I was one way from getting my 150 goal, and then last year 100 and like 28 or 9 species
Different
of fish.
species of fish.
Uh,
You keep track of that. That's crazy. So I joking when he was coming down here. I said, "All right, we got a private lake 2 miles from the house. You can go fishing every morning, and then we'll preach in the afternoon and do all that." And he thought I was joking. And so they've gone the last couple of days and caught a 4.6 pound bass and
4.67
4.67
pounder.
pound bass. And
He
so
was a really, really healthy fish. There you
they
go on the
had a
camera.
great
We'll let you
time.
see him.
If you're on the camera, you can see that it was good. So. I wanted to get into another topic, and I'm probably going to do a part 2 on this where I go into more of my stuff and story. I'll just get it started and then ask you about it. And it's been an issue that I've seen. So I grew up in Tennessee. The little country school we went to, they had one black family, and there was no race problems. Everyone got along. When I was a kid, we moved to Iowa and grew up there. There were more black families, and we had no issues, no problems. Senior in high school, our homecoming queen was a black girl, and everyone voted for her. She was super nice, and everybody got along. Never had any race issues. Joined the Army. Basic training, AIT, jump school, permanent party, the bases in Korea and Fort Bragg. I never saw any racism. We had a 3-man team. 2 guys on the team were black, and me, and everybody got along great. I had their back, they had my back, and never saw any issues. I went to Bible college, and guess what I saw? Racism. And telling racist jokes, putting people down. And true story, one time I was giving a guy a ride back home from church, a guy going to Bible college, should be a preacher. So he said, "I hate black people." How can you hate a whole group of people that Jesus loved and died for just as much as he loved and died for you? And I almost kicked him out of the car. I was so furious. And in the ministry, I've seen that and pushed against that. And our church is a open church, welcome church. Everybody's there. Everybody comes. We had a mayor day one time, and the mayor came, and we let him greet the people and introduce the people to the mayor. And on the way out, he said to me, he said, "Wow." I said, "What?" He goes, "I've never seen this." I said, "What?" He said, "I've been almost every church in the county." He said, "You have white people and then black people and Spanish people. You've got some rich people and poor people. You got educable, slow people." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, I've never seen that." I said, "Well, I believe if Jesus was a pastor that everybody would be welcome." He goes, "No, I agree with that. I've just never seen that." And so I think that's the way churches are supposed to be. So if you're not on video, and Todd is you are a black man. Is that right?
Correct.
Correct. All right. So how have you seen, and this is a Fundamental Baptist podcast, and so it's to teach and help and preach and encourage, and what have you seen growing up? You were a black boy in a white family and school. How much racism did you see growing up? And how much have you seen since you've been now a preacher and independent King James Fundamental Baptist?
Growing up in Iowa, um, you know, I didn't even realize I was different than anybody till I was about 7. I was sitting in a Catholic church service with probably 300 white people, and I just noticed my skin was different than everybody else. So from that standpoint, not a lot of racism. But 9, 10, there was this one boy around the neighborhood called me a nigger, and it didn't really bother me because I didn't even know what it was.
Wow.
Um, and growing up, middle school, like grade school, I don't remember experiencing any racism from any adults or any kids. Middle school, there's just a little bit of that, but in Iowa, where I lived in Clinton, we got a lot of people, Chicago, that couldn't hack it in Chicago. I call them the Chicago rejects. Some people just couldn't make it for legitimate reasons, but some people just couldn't hack it, and they float down here and they try to sell the drugs and they try to do their things, and so we had all types of black people, productive ones and non-productive ones, and um, I'm trying to. Oh, I got an incident. Probably 10 years old. I walk into. This was the most significant issue as a child that I went through. I walked into my cousin's apartment, and his friends were walking in, and they had a dog, and they said, "You need to keep your cousin in the house the whole time he's here because our dog will kill him. He has been trained to kill black people."
Wow.
And they weren't racist people. They were pretty good people, but they got the dog from somebody that trained it to kill black people.
Wow.
And sure enough, I go out because I can't stay in there the whole stinking day. I walk out, that dog bust out after me. I'm a chubby little 10-year-old just running down the street or this parking lot, and I just think to myself, I'm gonna run as close to that dumpster as I can, then I'm gonna take a hard right. And I ran as close to that dumpster as I could, hard right. I could hear the dog's nails. Boom! He hits the dumpster. Then I'm taking off, running back to the door, and it's an apartment door, so it's got the air pump. So I grab that thing, and his paw gets stuck in the door, and they're like, let him go, and I'm screaming, no, no. And I never thought about hating white people or anything after that.
Yeah.
And uh, when I really felt like those black pressures, if you will, or it was like being a teenager. I didn't hang out with the best people, but I definitely felt profiled for not only being black, but I was a skateboarder. I can remember one of my teachers. He was our football coach. Said, "You need to start hanging out with some taller people, or you're not going to play football for me." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "All those skateboarders." So I got one of my black friends, and I walked into his office and said, "Now, what did you just say?" And he said the same thing. So then I walked into the principal's office. I was like, "Is a principal in here?" They're like, "Yeah, you need to wait a minute." I didn't wait for nothing. I walked into the principal's office. So I hear I'm not playing football for you. This is after I just had a 1,000-yard season as a sophomore. And he was like, "Who said that?" And I told him, and they ended up firing him. That was the last straw. But I was a black kid that rode around on skateboards and yada yada yada. Um, and as a skater, I was legitimate. Anything that I did, I was solid at, and I was a good skateboarder. And I hung out with the gangbangers. I hung out with the preps because I played the sports, and I was a skater because I loved to skateboard. And I can remember black people crushing white people with rocks, and white people crushing people with skateboards. And I'm just sitting back like, this is just ridiculous.
Talk about in ministry is preaching. In my mind, I've seen the racist jokes and prejudging people based on the color of their skin, which is what prejudice is. We prejudge people, and people talking about, they need a good black church, like there's a different church for white and black people. Have you been around or seen any of that?
Yeah, so I try to get people in the church. Like last year, there was only 3 weeks that went by when I wasn't able to lead somebody to the Lord, and at least one person. And everybody I try to get, or everybody I lead to the Lord, I try to get into a church. Now, a majority of those people were not in my city, but every person that was in my city that I led to the Lord, I invited to church, tried to get to church. Many came to church, and out of all the black people, none of them have stuck, not one of them. And it's always the same stuff, like the music, or I just need a black guy to preach to me, or this, that, and the other. But a lot of it has to do with the music, and you know, they just don't understand. Not they, but people, because I brought some white people, and they've at this music, yada yada yada. But they just a lot of times feel like I need the drums, and I need this, and I need that, uh, and we need to move. And I've been to solid, fundamental black churches that sing hymns, and they don't sing them like white people because they're not white people, and they have a soul to them, and they have a little feel to them. Um, but the music needs to be God honoring, and soul stirring. And I try to tell people when I came and heard these hymns, I said, "What is this? I'm never gonna enjoy this stuff." And I don't really listen to much other stuff than that. So what that is, that's one of the barriers is music. Another barrier is white people are racist and black people are racist.
Yeah.
There's a barrier.
That's what I was going to ask. So you have seen both sides of it as far as where people
Yeah,
are
but way
prejudiced on both
more
sides.
with the white people than I have with the black people. Like, as far as uh the sorry, as far as the black people, a lot of stuff um I'll hear. Continuing on to what I was saying is, like, I would say, look, we got an old fashioned, old time religion, Bible preaching church, and like, here's old time religion. Some of your people used to sing those hymns that you sing in your hymn books, and then go put bed sheets on and lynch people. And I can't argue with that because it's true. But it's not the old time religion that I'm trying to talk about. And then we have on the same token, my father. I'm kind of getting off on a rabbit trail. We can shoot him dead if you want to, or we can run with this. But my father-in-law, the man that adopted my sister, I call him my father. He was in Texas when they were integrating schools. And he went through some things. My mother would sit down at the table. People would spit on her, and everybody would rise up from the table and leave. And she works with white people. She loves white people. She has nothing against them. But then there's a lot of black people who will tell those stories and have hatred and bitterness in their heart. And naturally, their kids will adopt that hatred and the bitterness.
Right.
And then I just preached in a church down in Florida not that long ago. They just took out of their constitution uh, that black people can come to the church.
Wow.
Before then, black people couldn't come to church. Now, black people were welcome to come to the church, but they still had that in there. What's that doing in there? There's no business with that in there. And then I asked the guy, how is you're in a black neighborhood? How is your efforts to reach the black people? He said it's tough because my grandpa knows, and generations have known that black people aren't welcome here. So you have some of those issues. And then me as a preacher personally, some of the stuff I've dealt with first was the white wife thing. You're married to a white wife. That's wrong because of ham and sham and this and that and the bloodlines and yada yada yada. So I talked to one guy. I said, okay, you got a Mediterranean lady there. So what's up with that? He was like, oh, I traced the bloodlines back, and I'm like, it's phooey. It's nonsense. And then here's something that kills me. It's a culture thing. So I should get an exemption.
Yeah.
It's a culture thing. You grew up in a black home, you marry a white woman, you're going to have issues. Well, I'm a black man that grew up in a white home,
Right.
so shouldn't I get an automatic exemption from that? And then, you know, stupid jokes about racism, or just I've dealt with so much poking. And one preacher, black this, black this, black this, black that, poking at this, poking at that, and um, I couldn't. I just he just seemed like a solid guy, but there's always this poking, and he would give me advice that was super sound that I didn't ask for in a razzing type of way. And then he called me to have him come preach for him. And I went down there and preached for him. And I've never to this day had anybody treat me better than he did. And he's an older man. He's 70 plus. So I'm down in Texas in a place that's been racist since racist. And I'm in his office and he's like, oh yeah, I had the first black couple that came to my church. The next day, a guy come in on a Monday, set his pistol on my desk and said, we're not going to have no more of these black people in our church.
Wow.
And he set the gun, and he turned the gun towards him and said, well, if you're going to use that gun, you can use that gun because we're going to have black people in our church. So, that's mixed for me.
Right.
Like, what are we doing here? Like, what is that? And then I've been in this heard so many just stupid jokes. But what really kills me is, I was at a large camp. Most people hearing this, even if they don't know the quote unquote circle, if I mention the camp, I dare say 90% of the people would understand or would know the camp that I'm talking about. And before it's time to go to sleep, they're having a little devotion with the kids, and the guy gets up. The guy that's had me preach several times for him gets up, and he just goes on and on and on about how it's wrong for black people to marry white people. And afterwards, he said this: I know they'll never have me. They weren't happy with him, and he said, I know you guys are never going to have me preach here, but it needed to be said.
Well, it's always amazing to me. Someone can say that, and your Bible verse is what? What's the Bible verse for this? If the Bible is our authority in all matters of faith and practice, then what's your Bible verse for it? Because it's not there. And when you see that Moses married an Ethiopian woman, and then they criticized her, Miriam criticized, what happened? Who did God judge? Not Moses. Judge Miriam with leprosy, and she had to go to Moses to even be healed by that. So it's amazing people's prejudice or stereotypes when I wish as Christians we would talk about how many races there are. One race. It's called the human race. The human race. There's one race. There's different tribes, different nationalities, different colors, different peoples, different families, all that. But there's one race, the human race. And I think in our churches, there's a lot we need to do. So we're going to end this for time, but I want to ask.
Let me say this. A lot of those people that felt that way, a lot of those people that were harsh to me at the beginning, I believe God put me in their path because now a lot of those people have different opinions, and a lot of those people are dear friends to me.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely say this: I see far more people that love people than people that are racist. The problem is the people that have the issues. They preach that stuff and people soak it up. They don't take any time to dig into the Bible and say, where is this at?
Right.
They take this verse out of context, or they take what they say as sound doctrine, sound Bible doctrine.
Yeah.
And
we're going to have another episode on this. I'm going to go into a lot of the Bible teaching on this, but I want to ask you two things before than anything else that you have. So one is it getting better or worse from what you see in our churches and then in our country? And then number two, what's the answer? What's the answer to racism?
Is it getting better or worse in our churches? And then ask me that next question. In our churches, here's why I think it's getting worse. Like, younger generations are getting fed up, and they're like, what is this? Like, these guys have been preaching this, but this is trash. And then we start new fundamental Baptists, and then the teenagers go to no church, or they go to non-denominational churches. So in that aspect, it's getting worse, and we're already plagued with young men that don't want to yield to the call to preach, don't want to work, don't want to do nothing, and then they see that nonsense and like, why do I want to be part of that? Like, they have like,
Right.
what, it's cool to be black. One of the it doesn't matter what anybody says. The most influential people on the planet are black people. We dress this way, we wear these
Yep.
kind of clothes, you
Yep.
drive these kind of cars, and that's what people do. So when you're bashing people that they look up to, whether it's for right or wrong, that's a hindrance. And to any black people listening, we need to make sure that we're setting trends for Jesus, amen, instead of the world.
Amen.
But you know, I don't. Here's why I feel it's getting better. Because a lot of those old men that preach that nonsense are fading off the scene.
Yeah.
But with a lot of those old men fading off the scene, a lot of their good, solid standards and the solid stuff that they're preaching are fading off as well.
Yeah. That's right. So what's the answer? What's the answer?
Oh, the world. You
to
said, is
see-
it in the
okay,
world?
is the world, is it getting worse in the world?
It's getting. Well, here's I don't even know how to answer that, because we have a bunch of black people that run around screaming, uh, Black Lives Matter, and Black lives do matter. People say, all lives matter is a protest to Black Lives Matter, and I'm not against that. I don't disagree with that. But what I do disagree with is the black people that stick up for an organization ran by white people that is not for black people.
Yeah.
That's for tearing black people down, and or definitely not building them up.
Right.
Do a little stinking research, amen.
Yep.
That's like when Obama got voted in. I was happy that there was a black president, but I was perplexed because Young Jeezy and all these rappers get on, vote for Obama, and people go and vote for him because of a rapper told them to, instead of watching a debate. Like, what are we really doing here? And you know, we as black people, we've tried to do things like, whether you like taking a knee or not. I think since we live in a country where you can take a knee, you should stand. That's just simple as that. Try to take a knee or try to bash your president or try to do that in another country. It's off with your head. So since we live in a country where you can take a knee, if you want to take a knee, stand. But like Colin Kaepernick and all them dudes, like, realistically, taking a knee is not where it's at. You got this money, you got this platform.
Yeah.
Get into a branch, do something serious with your money and your power and your effort. So we have that, and then we have, like, a guy walks in and orders a black coffee in Oregon or somewhere, and they flipped out on him. It's not you're not woke if you call it black coffee. I forget what they call it. And what is this? So it's not even worse. It's definitely worse, and it's not because of this black-white issue, like white supremacy, yada yada yada. There is all that stuff, but like, people just taking stuff out of context is just like, it's a storm.
It seems like I said, when I grew up, and even when you grew up, I'm a white guy, so obviously I wasn't a part of any, person being racist to me. I didn't see it. I'm sure someone who's black growing up with it did, because they had that.
I really feel like I felt it from the police a lot too.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. Now, and it's amazing when I love what Morgan Freeman and Denzel Washington and those guys, when they talk about racism. Even I don't know who this guy is, but he has a real raspy voice. Little Wayne, is that?
Mm-hmm.
You hear these guys talk about racism, and I've heard the testimony. Lil Wayne said, I've never seen racism. I've always been treated with respect. And they're like, what? You can go Google that. Amazing. Morgan Freeman said in an interview with this big news guy, he says, stop calling me a black man where I'm a man. You know why the racism is worse? Because we talk about it.
Right. I'm an American, not an African American. I wasn't born in Africa. I'm just American. I don't mind being called African American, but I label myself an American.
Yeah. And so the more people push to divide and point out our differences, then the worse it gets. Instead of agreeing how many things we have that are alike and the same. And
And
so,
those are the things we need to be woke on right
yeah,
there.
exactly. And I think the people that are trying to push and show the differences are making it worse. And I think Obama did with trying to make issues of things that were not issues. They weren't race issues. They were a person issue. And you make it a race issue because the person happened to be black when this was illegal. It was wrong. Deal with that. Don't bring race into it. As they say, play the race card. If it's not a race issue. And obviously there's some time that it is. So it does seem like people that are trying to, and again, this is Morgan Freeman, says you want to fix it, stop talking about it, stop making that. So anyway, so the answer, what is the answer to the race issue, the race problems? What would fix that?
Well, simply it's Jesus. But
Amen.
if we can start loving people, truly loving people, and loving people where they're at,
Yeah.
things will just be better. Like, it's tough for me. There's some people in my life, like the man who taught me to love people where they're at. I've had he's caused a lot of hurt, pain, and anguish in a lot of people that are close to me, but I still love him.
Mm.
I still love him, and because I'm able to love him, uh, I don't hate him like some of those other people hate him. If you love white people for who they are or black people, um, it's hard to hate somebody that you love.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Um, and then a little bit of research helps. Hey, I'm gonna join this cause. I can't stand. Hey, so I spoke in this Black Lives Matter rally, and it was organized by a little white homosexual man, little tiny homosexual man, and I never really got around to asking him, what he was starting this for. But I got there, and people are in public enemy number one's got these signs up, and they're not going to let him speak. I came and I was wearing this right here, something similar, and I got up there. I said, "Hey, can I speak?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "It's not about women's rights," and that's what the paper quoted me. Todd Monaghan. It's not for
Mm.
women's rights. It's not about women's rights. It's not about black people's rights. It's not about gay people's rights. It's not about you guys all want equality. You guys want everybody to have a good life. Then stop trying to promote your agendas over everybody's agendas. If you're about this love, then love everybody. I'm a fundamental Baptist preacher. I love gay people.
Yeah.
And people think, oh, he hates gay people. He hates this. He hates that. I'm not. I love people
Right.
because I want to help people.
Amen.
Amen. So definitely love. Definitely doing a little bit of research. Hey, I'm for this. I see the white girl in my church walk around with this Black Lives Matter church shirt. She says, you don't know nothing about this. What are you talking about? What are you doing here? Why do you rep that? Why do you rep that? So doing some research, knowing why you believe what you believe, loving people right where they're at, Jesus Christ, and for here's I'll end with this because I know we have a time constraint, but you don't have any right to complain about my country if you live here and you don't spread the gospel.
Amen.
Because Jesus Christ is the answer, the antidote, whatever you want to call him.
Absolutely.
If you're not giving people the cure, then you don't get to complain.
Amen. The answer is Jesus for sure. So I'll tell more of my story and things we've done and gone against it. But Brother Todd's preaching for us, and I thought, boy, it'd be great to have you on, talk about life background ministry, but also to talk about this race issue and see if we can help some. So if someone would like to connect with Todd Monaghan, have you in to preach, do camp, school, service, whatever, how can they follow you and how can they connect with you?
mmaministry at gmail.com. Todd, the letter N, Megan, Monaghan, Monaghan on Facebook, or Iowa_top team, mixed martial arts, Todd Monaghan on Instagram.
Also, Todd, we'll try to put that in the description so they can have that, your website and email address in the description of the podcast. That way they can connect with you. And when, I'll tell you what happened, the man that led Todd to Christ, his name is Jay Carson. Jay Carson moved down to Tennessee and came to our church, and he said, "Hey, can you have this guy come down and preach? He led me to Christ." I'm like, "What is he?" "Yeah, he's got a rough background, but I'm sorry, I got to lead him to Christ." And I wanted him to come preach in our junior church. And And I like Jay, but I didn't know Todd. I'm like, so I took a chance on what Jay said to have Todd come down, and that was the first time that he preached anywhere was in our church, and so now he's got a nationwide ministry, and he owes it all to me. Just kidding, to Jay Carson, who led him to Christ and gave him push for him with us to let him preach, and so been a great friend and a great help in ministry and a co-laborer. Has a heart to love God, to help people, and so I can vouch for him 100%. He loves people, loves my kids, loves our family, loves our church, loves the guys in the jail. It's a pure heart, a sincere guy. And so if you're looking for someone who could be a help to you and your people, I promise you Brother Todd can. So thank you, sir, for coming on. Thank you for all the preaching. We got a few more days of this to happen. And
Are you
but
going to
it's been
compete?
good. So
You going to box?
I hurt people too badly. I don't think I should do that. So we'll see. Hey, God bless you. We'll see you next time on the podcast. Take care.